part of the
I would say,
plot.
but I
It's
would
part of
say
the whole.
that's what
Yeah, it's a foundational. You can't have the second part without the first
Exactly.
part. So if they believe
By
in
the
that,
way,
as long as you don't come to that such a degree until you do
plenty
it.
of.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't have to.
That's why
It
it
doesn't.
puts us
It doesn't have
That's
to.
why we
It
get
does what is there.
those times in life where it's like, oh my god,
we don't
that's
live,
like,
gentlemen.
Which
So
I
if
tell
you say anything,
the
it can be equal.
assistant,
right there, shove there.
Oh.
she
See,
has
so that's what we do.
I think her
I'm
grandmother
educated.
He said, you can't be a good Christian.
She got it.
That's
Unless
the
you're
video
a
you make
good
also.
Jew.
Yeah.
That's
a
great one.
It doesn't follow.
You see the kid,
If
you
you
later, he
look,
goes back, you see,
As a matter of
I
fact, that
love
was the
that.
very
Because
beginning
otherwise
of the
don't-
changeover.
you know, you could
The
never put him on.
original-
The
guy who's
guy
a sponsor, all the stuff.
Frederickson
Let's go.
was a hookham in this area. She converted to Judaism.
So ties in also
She-
that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Specifically with that.
She knows,
Yeah.
one of her books I read, that you have to be a
I know, but so
That's what I'm in. That's my head.
so clear.
You know, the original Jew,
Whole bread. He's got the whole
the
bread.
Christian,
bread.
just
Yeah.
took it a little bit further.
Someone's like,
The original.
not go away on
But then
why?
You're crazy.
I'm like, why?
These Roman people, Vittorio,
I have to, can't have young people listen to
other
I'm like, yes, they
early
can, you know,
Romans who
yeah, this conversation.
mixed up the whole
When you
thing.
go too far, pull back.
They are the
But
ones
try it
that
and you'll
push
see
the
nervous.
separation
Nervous.
of the division of Christian thought as opposed to today to try to cut it off. But the original Christians were Jews, all Jews. There was no such thing. You couldn't have one without it doesn't
Right.
stand. And he
That's what
gets
the
it.
that's what the article says.
Right, he gets it. Huckabee gets it. That's the whole movement. And I mean, I think he's a great. I mean, I know those kind of people. They're
He's a good guy.
awesome people.
He's a good guy.
Luckily,
I've interviewed him a few times.
No,
I've interviewed him a few times. He's
oh, you
good.
have?
Yeah.
You've met him?
Yeah.
In person, is
Yeah,
he
in person.
ruthless?
Yeah, he's the real deal.
No, I like the guy.
Yeah.
I grew up with people like him.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He's not,
He has. I don't think he has an anti-Semitic bone.
no, he doesn't.
No, he has respect.
He's real. He's truthful with what he says.
Yeah, I think he would have made a good president.
He would have, yeah.
I think he would
He
have.
probably would have corrupted him somehow, just because usually when getting that much power it does.
Very few
He
people
might.
get away with it.
He did,
because he.
The reason why I don't think he ever went that high is because he's too truthful.
He started this thing with
You know
names.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, he
So
got
kinda
that
like
done, you know, there was a
The first time I heard it was like in 2005.
Yeah.
Wasn't like he didn't have
It was
people
written
about
by
the names originally.
Roth.
So depends when you met him.
One of the scenes
I'm an old timer.
takes
You're an
the
old timer.
sunborns and
Yeah.
you made the cut.
he's given the present. You know, it's a
That's great.
background is like some fancy.
Certain guys, maybe does both.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Seth, he does Anshul and
Yeah,
Fine
it's
House.
true. Yeah, it's true.
Son-in-law.
It's fun.
So
True story,
Inuit
and only
Coeptus
He
means
puts him in the plumbing.
God has favored our undertakings, or He
He
approves
says
of our
one of the great
undertakings.
lines. He says,
And then
"What's your problem
Noah's
is
Ordo Secularum
you don't
means
have enough
a
God."
new order of the ages.
Right.
I mean, you don't like to hear it, but you want to be in business.
You know what? I
have to
can't
have God.
find did you happen to see
The problem
in
you
your
had with Harry
different
Truman. He
shines in
didn't
the
have enough
closet
God.
that we
So
lost
people,
the
you know,
charger?
He did what was right.
The
Right.
these are
I didn't
know that.
rechargeables. The charger's gone and
And
the
he
other
made the
batteries are all
decision.
gone. I just put in the
You
regular
don't
I
have
didn't
battery.
enough
realize
God.
you were-
That's
Yeah,
smart that you did
unfortunately.
that.
Yeah.
Such a waste.
you know.
Such a waste. So,
I-
but
that's
it's
what
not.
I
This thing eats batteries.
It's missing.
I don't know why I don't
Not
update
to get
this.
political.
I have
I
have
told-
good systems.
I know, and I
He's
told
running
Yaakov
this whole
about
thing.
this many
He thinks
times.
he's in
So
his office.
I have one in my.
He thinks he's running a real estate deal.
Yeah.
Just because,
You know,
but
like,
if you happen to see
buying a
this
piece of
piece
property,
in
what's
London,
the-
I look
Oh,
at
wait,
it,
mine uses the same guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's fine. It's not so bad. I mean, if we can
And
do
that's
what
what
we
he's like
talked
doing with
about,
the tariffs.
that would be great.
That's what
But,
he said.
you
Okay,
know,
I see
that's
it's
Hot mic.
Maybe we'll make
Yeah, hot
another. I mean,
It's a hot
the
mic.
guy is good.
It's a hot
I mean,
mic.
it's-
There's three people on the
wait
listening.
for this,
Yeah,
and it's still going
it's
on.
entertaining. all crazy.
No, it's
Yeah.
still going on, but he's doing. He's sending in the army to LA.
Yeah,
Hey,
well,
how do you like that, Calvin? Your
What's
friend
that?
Trump is sending the army to LA to straighten out the cops.
yeah.
You know the.
I don't know. It depends who's listening, but I'm all for it. That's
oh,
why
the army.
I think we should listen to the reading, not go in the news.
Uh,
National Guard, yeah.
National
And they're
Guard.
not taking any.
It's not going to the news.
Yeah.
Said you didn't have to request permission because they're
Right, he just sent it.
they're incompetent. So why should they ask them?
And this guy knew some faggot of a guy.
You're scum. You're scum.
Hot mic, hot mic, hot mic.
I don't know. I agree with you on it. Is it a normal day?
Okay, tomorrow there'll be news.
Priorities every day this news. Every minute this news.
All right.
Okay.
How come it's
So much stress.
You don't know?
Very young. Something.
My wife's
No, it's an organization.
This was good. Wow, she's
Alright.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pick up the house today? So what time? Okay, I just wanna schedule it out. Okay, fine. Appreciate it. Yeah. You got home, right? Like you never ended up going to school? Really?
I don't know. What's the thing? I think it's not for me. It works for you.
Whatever. I can't worry about it. I don't know. Okay. All right. I'll take it. Okay.
This invention they fell into. I took it.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, we're getting
This budget's $100 million.
but they couldn't prescribe it.
That's a lot of money.
They finished the trial.
Whatever they do, I know exactly what they do. They do like stipends.
Oh, is that how they Just, I'm telling you, it's a Dutch on. I don't want you to, no, I forget it. Yeah, well, no, you look great.
So, is your boys camp, the operation running upstate for the boys? Are you guys looking for any, not my kids, someone else I know? Anybody else to work there in the summers or like an assistant helping out with the operations or anything?
It might be operations.
Yeah,
It might be
someone who wants that type of stuff.
like maintenance. And,
Yeah, they want to. I thought like a 17-year-old kid would feel geschmack having.
70 miles too young.
Really? Legal?
We just in terms of the level of responsibility with what we have is too young.
Okay. No problem.
I gotta go to
Sometimes too young.
When you hang up,
What?
when you hang up.
I heard this week. I went on the trip.
Every week.
Every
I
week.
mean, you want to know what I lift off for
Yeah, yeah.
the 26th.
Oh, so you used to be sewed?
I sent out new sheets.
New
I sent out new sheets today.
How about hose? We didn't finish these. I feel like they need more work on this area.
Boys, I know they
Okay, good.
More work. Oh, Sears over that fit?
Life's too short.
Okay.
Life's too short.
Hey, your brother is still around?
Yeah, my brother went to his kids in Brooklyn today. So
I figured you ran out early last night.
yeah, I didn't know if you were you needed a ride.
Yeah, I figured you had trouble. They didn't come with us.
No, yeah, I ran back. Can I?
Home last night.
No, Ben's here. So we're gonna hang out today. Hashem, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's always a pleasure, you know. When the kids come home, it's nice. Yeah. It's really nice. Great. Hey, brother. How you doing, Al? Is there a reason it's this year?
In case somebody needs a finger.
In case you need to point something out. This was broken, and I guess so must have been fixed. You don't need a
No. I have enough addictions.
You told me that. But you know what? It's the right attitude.
I don't know. I got enough going on. I know that.
That's funny. Bam, you gotta listen.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, definitely. Do a couple of really good highlights.
Did you? So we live?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah. Just let us be on the Hefe and we'll cook from
I started, I didn't finish it.
cook is great stories.
I gotta go for something today. If he throws it out to the crowd today, you gotta be ready to counteract.
Slide it away.
Shamil is still 6 years asleep on it. She had the opportunity.
Rahman. I should have you sent it. I want to begin by thanking Rabbi Rahmani and the family, sponsoring the Shirim, Nishmas' father, Rabbi Noam, Nisham Shaf Maliyah, and Simcha Nachas and So the Zman is sort of winding down. We have the schus next Sunday. We're going to have, as Hashem, Rav Ruvain Sasson is going to be with us during this time. I want to thank Chaim Reeder and thank Chaim for arranging that. There's also going to be Sunday night in Mitzvah Hashem, so you should check. You'll see the time at Chaim's house. Sunday night with Hashem. It's a tremendous schus for any of you who have heard him, who have met him. You just said shalom to him. You know there's kedai to come, and the ivrit is ivrit kala, so don't be frightened by that, but don't expect English. But it's very, very special. It's very kedai. And then we'll probably have another shir too. I don't look at the calendar afterwards, but I wanted to sort of make the ne'ilah, the chasima of this zman with the Torah from the great Baal Musa, the Tzaddik, Rabbi Yucham Levavitz, Tzaddik Kosh Levracha, which I learned this from a lot, and this Torah that we're going to learn is actually, I was thinking about when we were up in the mountains with a couple of Chaveim last week, and one or two of the questions that were asked, we were having a little conversation about the lawn, and it touches very much what we were learning about before Yom Tov, that Akash Baruch Hu's an Ish Milchama, and he's a Bacher Ish Milchama, and the Bacher has to know that when he's going to war, this war that we've been learning about over these past years, that he's not going by himself. And he has to live with that thought always. I can't. If not for Hashem, there's no way that I could do this. There's no way. And that's the bottom line. That's what I was talking about yesterday also. By Shabbos morning, I was talking about this as well. And Shabbos afternoon. The talk that I gave about the Indian of Reika Ha'aretz al Hamayim. And this shmuz from Rabbi Yucham sort of ties things together in a very, very clear and practical way. So let's learn it together. I hope that you should have it. We should have it sent it out. No, it's not so comfortable to look on the phone. Try. So it's in Das Chachma Musa and Cheres Beis, Maimer Chav Ches. It says B'Mishnah Saita. Able to see it, I hope. It says B'Mishnah Saita. The Mishnah at the end of Saita is Mishemeis, Rabbi Meir, Batlu, Moishla, Mishalom, Mishemeis, Rabbi Kiva, Batlu, Kabbalah Torah. The end of Saita, in many ways, is very similar to Chelik and Sanhedrin. It's talking about what's going to be at the end of time, and it's a pretty depressing picture. They saw a vision of it. We're living in it, of what's going to be at the end of time. That from the time already that Rabbi Meir died and Rabbi Kiva died, we don't have Kabbalah Torah, and then it goes on to say that the Ikvus Mashiach and telling about all the difficulties that we're going to be facing at the end of time. The Chachmas Seifrim Tisrach, the Yirei Chet Yimasu, people who are God-fearing are going to be despised and they're going to be outcasts. The Emes Tehei Nederes, and truth will disappear. The Emes Tehei Nederes. The Emes Tehei Nederes. Anybody who thought there was still some truth in the world, I think the past year and a half or two has become very clear that Emes Tehei Nederes. And after this horrible report of upcoming attractions, which again we're in now, at the end, the conclusion of that mission is Alma yesh lanu hishayin alabina shebishamayim. Alma lanu hishayin. What can we depend on? What can we hishayin? Mish anu miftach tzadikim. What can we lean on? Who can we depend on? Ella alabina shebishamayim. So Rabbi Yucham says, "V'humafli v'tamur." So this is a wonder. So the Mishnah is describing, and the Gemara is describing Ikvis of the Mashiach, the end of time, before Mashiach comes, Erev Mashiach, where we are now, and tells us that there's no one to rely upon except Hashem. So Rabbi Yucham is saying, and before Ikvis of the Mashiach, in other words, in our times when they were living. In our times, back in time in the Mishnah. Did Yesh Chalila Mishu Acher Amil Hishayin? There's somebody else we can depend upon other than Hashem. Halgami Kaidim Ein Lanu Hishayin Erlav in Shushamayim. There's never been anybody we can rely upon except Hashem. Umawa Chiddush Shegil Lanu Chazal Bezer Alif Yitzin Mashiach. So what is it that's unique about our time? What's unique about Ikvis the Mashiach? This Chiddush that the Chachmei Mishnah said the time is coming when it will be Ikvis the Mashiach. He said it's not right now. They said, but it's coming, and when that time will be. So Ein Lanu Amil Hishayin, and there's all the horrible things. This is not going to work. That's not going to work. The whole world will be sheker. Ve'Ein Lanu Amil Hishayin Lo B'Shur Shemayim. It's always Ein Lanu Amil Hishayin. What's the Chiddush of Ikvis the Mashiach? So Bichum says something very important comes out from this. And I really believe that our entire existence depends on this limud, on understanding this properly. Because the truth of the matter is, Rabbi Yochanan says that Hashem is revealed to us in the Torah, Torah Shabbat and Torah Shabbat, that He created a world where He does want us to rely on different things. He wants us to rely on different things, different people, different things. Hashem has commanded us. This is the derech that Hashem wants in the world that we should depend upon and rely upon others. This carvel of his baruch. Not only that through these relationships with those who we depend upon, we will get closer to Hashem. It's not a b'dev, it's the chachila. We'll get closer and closer to Hashem. And these are very helpful ways of strengthening our avodas Hashem. So he gives an example. We find in the parasha, the Torah, it's in Dvarim and it's in Vayikra that we just learned a few weeks ago. The issue of seeking out ma'inim and mechashvim, sorcerers, witchcraft, etc. That we're not allowed to go try to find out the future from these fortune tellers. These methods that they have for finding out the future. And the Torah says, you can't go to these people. You have to be tamim. You have to be pure with Hashem. Tamim tim Hashem lokecha. Pirush Rashi, has Rashi explained tamim. Rashi says, "Yesalach imo betmimus." To be tmimus. There's no real good English word for tmimus. To be poshet with Hashem, with the tzapalo, and trust in Him and wait for lo tachker achar asidos, not to try to find out the future. Not to go looking into crystal balls and to go to these fortune tellers and so on. He was talking about Isurim Deraisa. V'zel Gufei Isur. That's the Isur. She'elas HaHasidas, as Rashi tells us and the Gemara tells us, that the Isur is to go to try to find out the future. And there are people who in those days, there were people who were very, very good at that. And even now, there are people that can do that. There are people that have a certain chush like that. Some of them are Jewish. Some of them call themselves Kabbalists. Most of them are quacks. But some of them have a koach, a chush. And then there are guys in the house up. Some of them have a chush like this. Being able to tell a little bit what's going to be. But right then afterwards in the parasha, it says, "V'ata," the Hakadosh Baruch Hu tells Klal Yisrael, "Ata loy kei nasan l'cha Hashem." Hashem, Hashem does not want us to deal with this kind of stuff. So He gave us something else. Navi b'kirbecha me'achecha yakim l'cha Hashem elav tishmun. So Hashem said, I got another mahalach for you. There are other ways to find out. I'm giving you a kosher fortune teller. The kosher fortune teller we call a navi. Yeah, a kosher one. So don't use the iPhone. Don't use that. Don't use the internet. I'm giving you a new thing that's called a navi, and the navi you can go to. Not to only get. It says elav tishma. Again, a mitzvah deraisa of elav tishma, to listen to what the Navi tells you. And we just got finished saying, and just the pasuk I do before, that the Torah says, don't try to find out what's going to be. Tmimus means not your Indian. Right now, this is what you have to do. You wash negovasa, you daven, you live. Tmimus, pshitas. That's the Talmud Tiyah Mishnah V'Kacha. V'nei oiseh ma'aseh gufa shalach ka'achras idus shezohe issa ba'ovi yidani. Next page, which is the whole issa of ovi yidani. Why do people go to these witches and these people? They go because they're not in a place of tamimus. They want to know. They can't live without knowing what's going to be in the future. They want to find out what's going to be. It could help them with their panasa. It could help them with this, with that. They're anxious. So he tiul on Torah idei navi. But the Torah says, by a navi, there is such a thing. Elif tishmun. It's a mitzvah of Elif tishmun to go listen to the navi. Kamosh Matzinu, one of the strangest stories in all of Tanakh. When it was coming already to towards the end of Shaul HaMelech's life, and Shaul HaMelech was a big tzaddik, keeping masik, but it was a very strange thing that Shaul HaMelech shahalach lishal lenavi al derech hasaynus she'ovadim mitzaim. This is still the earlier part. We'll get to the end later on, but this is before he was king. So Shaul HaMelech was taking care of his father's animals, of the asaynus, the mules, whatever the animals. And they got lost. And it says that he went to ask the Navi to find out where the animals are. If he's going to find them. And we don't see that there's any criticism of Shaul going to a Navi to find out if his animals are alive or where he could find them. So we see that the Torah is telling us that if you want to find out the future or what's going on, you want to find out by using an Oiv Yidayni. Lu afilu b'matzav shel Shaul HaMelech shedei ma'aseh zu mipnei shenizbayish lahazkir b'tonim zoch l'mocha. And now he's talking about later on what happened to Shaul HaMelech. Is said towards the end. So Shaul HaMelech did not know what was going to be the outcome of the war that he was having, and it was a terrifying upcoming battle. Homaisa with the Plishtim. He didn't know what it was going to be, and Shaul HaMelech goes and he's looking for Shmuel Hanavi. The problem is, what's the problem with trying to get to Shmuel Hanavi? What's the problem? He's dead. So, that's a problem. So, he wants to speak to Shmuel Hanavi. And he tells Shmuel Hanavi, I tried speaking to Nevi'im, because there were other Nevi'im. I tried speaking to Nevi'im. I also tried to find out in a cholim, in my dreams, under what's going to be with the war. And I was not successful. So I'm really sorry to bother you. And you all know that Shaul HaMelech went to some lady that had this talent. That she was a sorceress. And Chazal, the Gemara tells us that he was embarrassed to admit to Shmuel Hanavi, Kil Shmuel Hanavi didn't know, but he was embarrassed to admit that he also tried to overturn him. And Lord Tumim did not respond to him. He didn't get an answer. He didn't get a reading from Lord Tumim. And the Gemara there says that Agav, that a person is embarrassed about something that's not good that he did, that such a person is Moichlem lo, that Hashem forgives him. So Rabbi Yochanan, look what Rabbi Yochanan says. So he says, he was embarrassed to admit that he did the wrong thing, and he wasn't roy that the Urim Tom should answer him. He was zeicha to hear from Shmuel Navi. Shmuel Navi told Shaul that you want to know what's going to be in the future? I'll tell you what's going to be in the future. Tomorrow, you and your son, your other son, are going to be together with me. You'll be together with me. In other words, you're done. That's the end. You're going to be together with me. That's like the Lahavdil of Alphabel, to can't hear myself. The joke, they tell about the guy that there were these crazy baseball fans. The joke. And but it's worth repeating. Crazy baseball fans, and they made it. He made a pact. Him and his chavusa, they're both these big fans. That the first one that dies is going to tell him like what goes on with baseball and Shemayim. How's it? So tell me in a dream. So the guy comes to him. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's been a long time. The guy comes to him in a dream, and he says, "No, what's going on? There's baseball." Shemayim. He says, "Yeah." He says, "So I have good news. There's bad news. What's the good news? The good news is that there is baseball in Shemayim. And what's the bad news?" He says, "The bad news is you're pitching tomorrow." That's the bad news. So Shmuel Hanavi says, you're pitching tomorrow. He says to Shalom Melech, "You and your Highness son, you're going to be together with me." And that's the Gemara there in Brachos. We come both and say, so that was wrong what he did. That he went to go speak to bring Shmuel Hanavi back, and that he went the wrong way about doing it. That was taka wrong, but he was forgiven, as the Gemara explains over there. But however, early in his life, when he went to the Navi to find out where the animals were, and to see if they're still alive or whatever, what's going to be, so that is that's not a problem. It's a problem to go speak to go in a way that's not kosher, because that could lead you away from Hashem. That could lead you into Avodah Zarah, to bad things. But to go to a Navi, nothing bad is going to come to go to the Navi. He didn't do it. To go to the Navi is fine. They say it's Kav Hashem. To go to the Tzadik, to go to the Navi, brings you closer to Hashem. He just didn't do it in the kosher way to begin with. But to go, and afterwards, he didn't do it in the kosher way, but to go to Navi is fine. So Rabbi Yerucham says, so we see that Hashem does want us to rely on people for certain things. Davkei de Navi, shekachu ratzon Hashem, elav tishmon kechol asher sha'alta. Listen to whatever the Navi tells you. Ask the Navi and listen to what he tells you. The Vilna Gaon writes in Mishlei, in his Pesha Mishlei, how in the time when they were in the Nevi'im, a person would go to the Navi with a krittel, and he would have his name, and the Navi would look at his name, and the Navi would tell him what he should do, and what parnas and what he should do with his life. So, that's relying on a person. That's a mish'an. Heitiv kol shediber by the Nevi'im. Obviously, not everybody is worthy or qualified to hear from Hashem directly, so you go to a Navi. And the people used to go to the Nevi'im. Elav Tishmun. Lismarchel Yishai al Navi. Once you know he's a legitimate Navi, however, that as the Rambam explains in Hilchas Yisrael Torah in Perek Zayin, how that works, what the Gemara tells us, how that works, so then it's a legitimate Navi. Go to the Navi. You can't find the animals, go to the Navi. You want to know what you should do for a Parnasa? Talk to the Navi. L'shmor l'kaim dvar. V'chol oiv al dvar chayv misa. Gemara says, and if you don't listen to the Navi, chayv misa. Mishum shezeu haderech. So we see that Hashem did create such a derech. Davka idei Navi. V'davka ba'oifen zeh batuach adam she's karev l'Hashem. In such a way where it's davka Navi, a kosher Navi, and this is a way to get closer to Hashem. This is a path of kirvas Hashem. Nimtzu ki be'emes yichol l'yishayin v'l'vtach al Navi. The Torah is telling us that you can rely completely on a kosher Navi. You can rely completely. With complete bitachon, you can rely on a Navi. Shekein ratzu yisbarach shenismach al Navi. And Hashem created the world in such a way, and He wrote in the Torah, and the Gemara teaches us how to rely on the Navi. Ki'ilu shetzrichim l'siyur minavi. In other words, you can't do this on your own. There's a lot of things in life you can't do because you're not able. You don't have the qualifications. You're not in that madrega. So you need help. The Navi is a good person to speak to. And this is a way to get closer to the Ratzon Hashem. And Kain Metzinu Sheharamban, Mevoyer, Hodloi Nechtam Gzar Dinim Shel Dor HaMabul Ela Ala Gezel. Chazal tell us, Rashi brings down there in Parshas Noach, that before actually, and the Bereshis brings down that even though the Dor HaMabul were doing all kinds of bad things, but the ultimate chasima was on Gezel because they were thieves, they were stealing. So the question, of course, is, this is discussed by the Rishonim, Rosh Hashanah, and others talk about this. They have 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, right? Who told them the 7 mitzvahs? This is also the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So who told them the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach? Were they actually told by a Navi? Beferish, don't steal. So there's a whole shakta v'taya in the Gemara. And the Ramban writes, even if you didn't hear from a Navi, even if the Navi didn't tell you not to steal, it's something that the Seichel itself commands a person. Seichel. Alkeinu chomer b'yoyser. And that's why Gezel is so chomer. Because even if you didn't go to the right school, and even if your parents didn't tell you everything, and if you didn't hear from anybody to teach you this, the Seichel tells you that belongs to him, it doesn't belong to you. Seichel tells you not to steal. So they did a lot of bad things, but even the Seichel you didn't listen to. V'oiv al dvar of chayiv misa. The Ramban says, so we see here the ha'oiv al dvar, if you're oiv al divrei ha-Seichel, you chayiv misa. If you're oiv al divrei ha-Seichel. That's reason enough for for there to be a Gzar Din on all the Free Palestine cover, right? Just that. If they would just think about it, if they would study it. The Seichel's Mechayev. You don't have to hear that from God. The Seichel's Mechayev such a thing. You should side with people who are peace-loving and kind people, and you stay away from people who are murderers, rapists, like to cut off babies' heads, and bird people. Seichel's Mechayev such a thing. It used to be. That's what it means to emes nederes. It's unbelievable. Emes nederes. For oival dvar chayiv misa, the Ramban says, your oival divrei ha-Seichel, that's what happened at that time of Noach. And you chayiv misa. L'chayra hayatzarech lios Yosef chayiv misa ha-oival divrei Hashem. Misbar misa, shenachinabi. Ha-Torah tzivs l'on l'shmoel ha-Seichel. So what the Ramban is telling us, the Torah is telling a person, listen to your seichel, to common sense. Ad kedei kach, shaha'oiv al dvar chayiv misa. Because the Ramban could have just said, your oiv al dvar Hashem, you chayiv misa. The Ramban is saying a chiddush. That even if you didn't hear Hashem tell that to you, your oiv al dvar seichel, you chayiv misa. Mishum shezeu haderech. Hashem, because Hashem created the world in such a way. Zeu haderech. Hashem gave a person he created us in such a way where, again, a healthy, normal person, that's the big, but a healthy, normal person should be samach on his seichel, on common sense. Val yodai yigil l'ratzon lokav. And that through your own seichel, you will reach the ratzon of Hashem. That Hashem created in man an intuition, a seichel, that will bring him closer to Hashem. Kimahu seichel. So he brings from the Chavos Levavos. What is this? What is the mind? Hay seichel ha'ara l'kis. It's a ha'ara, it's a ha'ara of elokus. Kfi shekara it's a Chavos Levavos. It's Hashem's way of speaking to us. It's through common sense, through the Seichel. Hazkaras Elokim es ha'odam be'emtzos sichla. One of the ways that Kadosh Baruch Hu speaks to us is through the Seichel. Not just a Navi, not just by an outside voice, an external voice, but by an internal voice of a clear seichel, common sense. So you'll have a person is not sure if he should wear his black socks today or his brown socks, so he's going to take a plane to Bnei Brak to ask Das Torah. Whether he should wear black socks today or whether he should wear brown socks. And I would like to say that I'm exaggerating, but it's only a little bit. Or to ask the Rebbe. Whatever it is. Why don't you think? Make a decision. As Karis Elokim es Adam be'em so sichlo. V'lo lo nuchal lismach leftach bo b'chol ha'bitachon ha'gomel. Should be able to rely upon the seichel. B'chol ha'bitachon, with complete confidence. Nimsa sheseichel u'be'emetz min ha'dvarim sheyuchel adam l'ishon lov b'chol ha'taikev. You see from this Ramban that seichel is something that Akash and the Chavos Levavos that Akash Baruch Hu wants us to rely upon common sense. Well, mitzvah l'isharlo. It's a mitzvah, so you don't have a navi. It's a mitzvah to ask yourself and your healthy, normal common sense. Lishmoy love, and to listen to what your seichel tells you. Ad sha'oival dvarav chayv misa. What the Ramban tells us. The Ramban says that they didn't have a Torah yet. But the Ramban, there was no Torah then. The Ramban says that they didn't listen to the seichel. It says don't steal, and they're chayv misa. Geen met zin shom chazal al Torah kedosha mishpat u'tzedakah. So Chazal say mishpat u'tzedakah, justice and so on. Yashvus ani nois lechem. Hashem said, I'm giving you mishpat u'tzedakah. It means a straight way to live, a straight way to think. Yashvus. He tzivah lana Hashem lismach al Torah, and Hashem said, I'm giving you in the Torah a way of mishpat u'tzedakah, a way of yashvus. And I want you to be soymach ala Torah. I want you to depend on the Torah. I want you to study it and to rely upon it and to live by it. Kilu ein anu tzrichim lismach alav yisbarach davka. You don't have, Hashem says, you don't have to come talk to me anymore. You don't have to come talk to me. And 99.9999% of you are not qualified to talk to me directly. But don't worry. I gave you Torah Shabbat, Torah Shabbat Peh. Ask. Learn Torah. Rely on your common sense. When things are unclear to you, you could always, of course, rely upon the Torah and so on, and the great teachers of Torah. Yuchalom l'nishan heitev al Torah Kadosh. Hine, so Rabbi Yochanan says, Hine nimsa, ki yeshna be'emes dvarim asher nuchal lismach u'lishon aleim. We see that there are many things that Hashem set up for us in life, externally and internally, that we can be soymach on. L'yishon aleim. Ki zeu michazli yisbarach shenashon l'dvarim keilu. It's a chesed of Hashem that He gave us these things. K'may Navi, back when we had Nevi'im, Betumim, they would ask the Betumim, Yehudi Allah, who's to lead us to war? They would ask the Betumim, Seichel, Torah, all of these different things that we rely on. And Hashem wants us to rely upon. It's a mitzvah to listen to them and to trust them. And all of these mishanim help us tremendously in our avodas Hashem. That brings us. It makes it easier to get close to the next page. So now we go back to the original Mishnah and the Gemara that talks about Ikfus the Mashiach, the end of time. So what Yehuchim says here. So what a Chazal being Megala does. So Chazal looking to the future, and Chazal were telling us how everything is going to be falling apart. Our entire world order, and even in Klal Yisrael, everything's going to be falling apart. Ad ikveshe de Mashiach shehakel batul v'kol. Already in their times they said Rabbi Meir died, this is now good. This now is no good. Rabbi Kiva died, there's no covenant Torah. But you want to know what's all going to fall apart? Like it's in increments. So right now we're having problems because Rabbi Kiva died. It's bad. Because with Rabbi Kiva, when he died, there's no covenant. But you want to know when it's all going to fall apart? The whole thing's going to collapse? Ikvus the Mashiach at the end of time. Both of a kol. V'reihu be'emes v'na'plias ha'yoyse gedolos. This is one of the greatest wonders. How could it be that Hashem would allow this to happen? To take that all of the things that we depend on are going to disappear. Ulitzira, just to give an example. If let's say Rothschild writes you a check, or Rothschild says, "Come back to me after Mincha, I'm going to give you something," right? And someone asks you, you think you could rely on him. You think he could afford this? You could rely on him. The answer would be Rothschild, 100%. You could trust Rothschild. And what is Chazal telling us? She'im yesh lecha Rothschild yoysa gadol mikfi shehu seichel. Ve'im yesh ezet tzel shel safik b'samchusa. Hari seichel u'bal samcha hayoysa gadol. That you could rely. Anybody would say, sure, I could rely on Rothschild. But then you would say, but the seichel of a person's own seichel, is a bigger balsamcha. Common sense is a bigger balsamcha because Rothschild could go out of business. But you have your seichel. So Chazal saying the following: listen, even this richest Jew, Rothschild, even Rothschild is bankrupt. He's finished. You can't depend on Rothschild. Forget it. You were depending on Rothschild. Rothschild's finished. You were depending upon Bernie Madoff, and he made off with everybody's money. You were depending upon him, and you signed for Uvdahu. So all the other things in life, because you don't know what's going to be Rothschild tomorrow, and maybe he'll come back after Mincha, and he said, "No, I gave my last donation today." You don't know. Sof kol sof. You would say, I could depend on Rothschild. There's love dafka. But when it comes to so you don't know. Maybe you can be samich, may not be samich. And you sign for uvdahu seichel atzmo. But when it comes to your own common sense, seichel. Habar samcha hayoysa gadol, which is the bigger bar samcha. Partial as a regular. At the end of time, when before Mashiach comes, also went bankrupt. The seichel's also gone. Kol bottom. That's what the Gemara is saying. It's a nermai. You're saying that there's nothing to trust. The Mishnah of the Gemara is saying there at the end of Saita, you can't trust anything. You can't trust Rothschild, and you can't trust anything. Not even your own seichel, because it says "Ein lanu amil hishayin." There was nothing anymore that you could be absolutely certain about and you could trust. Hashem gave us the seichel to trust. Shuv ein lismach, but at the end of time, ein lismach. Maybe in their times, yes, they were still samach on that, and throughout time. But when it comes to ikvus of the Mashiach, now, ein lismach. Ain't listening. You can't trust even seichel. Lu hayu shalom lo Marishan. If you would have been able to ask Adam Rishon, Shirot Selim Lakim Mishlem Musa. Now Adam Rishon was created at Selim Lakim. Mishlem Musa. Shlem Seb Selim Lakim. Im Selim Lakim hu Darvish Yichel Nismach Alav, and you would ask Adam Rishon, I want to interview you were created with Selim Lakim. Do you think we could rely on you? Selim Lakim. You're the handiwork of God Himself. Personal, custom design, made by God Himself, directly. Adam Rishon would say, me? I'm telling Lakim, You could trust me, 100%. That was the same Erev Shabbos. It was all Erev Shabbos. So first of all, Adam Rishon himself, things didn't work out by the time it got to the end of Erev Shabbos. And then on top of that, man who's created B'Tselem Elokim, if we look after all the Shtar Shali Sadaris, never Tzelem Elokim Le'amad. We can't be Samachan Tzelem Elokim either. So you could say to every single person, you could say to Sinwa Yamachshamo, you're created B'Tselem Elokim, you're in God's image, can we trust you? And he would say, sure, you can trust him. You can't trust him. You can't trust anybody or anything. Ein yicham lismach lo. Nothing. Nobody. Ein lano ami lehishay. You have a tiny. You went to some Rebbe. You went to some tzaddik, and he said to you, "Don't worry, your kid's going to be fine. Your kid's going to be fine. The kid's not fine. He's not here." Ein lano ami lehishay. You get a bracha. It's a very nice thing. You want to know what's going to be? Ein lismach. Kosev b'kehelis, im oishek rosh v'gezel, mispat v'tzedek, tir b'medina. If you see a Medina place where there's oppression of the poor and there's no justice, so it says there, al tisma al chayv. Don't be surprised. Don't be shocked. It's Shlomo Melech's overall mabat on the state of the union. Pirush Rashi, shegoizlam es hamishpat atzmo. The people who are in charge of mishpat are the biggest thieves. The politicians, the justices. It's called a justice. It's the biggest place, which the Gemara talks about there. That the places of justice are the biggest places of corruption. Shegoizlam es hamishpat atzmo. Mishpat, and it was their mishpatim of Gzeilah. So you thought that you could rely upon Mishpat. The Mishnah says in the first parak of Avos that the whole world stands on din, on justice. But at the end of time, Mishpat is it's gone. What's the place you have in the Netherlands over there? ICC? What's it? In Hague? International Court, International Criminal Court, Mishpat,
Yeah.
United Nations. Everything they spoke about then, it's all we see it. Everything now is coming the way that everything they said. How is them not employed? Avosavkosov omdem anu etzel matzev ze shem mishpat etzel matzev ze shem mishpat atzman nigzav never menoil. The ones who are in charge of Mishpat are the biggest Gazlanim. Who would have ever said such a thing? Who would have ever imagined that the Mishpat will be stealing? That would be the new way of life. That's the Mishpat. Gzeila itself is the Mishpat. Davka Lashon Hara, who is Mishpat? To be able, journalism, Lashon Hara that's Mishpat. Avokenu Amatzav, Rabbi Yochanan said. Rabbi Yochanan was living he was saying this already back in the beginning of the 20th century. Avokenu Amatzav. Herluch Hashem Mishpat Atzma Never U'Batel. Zeh Shegilon Chazal B'Chol HaMishnah Shemayim Keseder. That's what Chazal is describing to us in that Mishnah. Shekol Advar Ma'Balei Samcha. Shenosan Lanu Hashem B'Chazdol L'Yishanim L'Smach Aleim. All the Balei Samcha, all the ones that Hashem told us, He gave us to rely on. He said, I'm making a world where you can rely on these things, on these people. There's no longer any Nevi'im. There's no longer any Tumim. What about places of Mishpat? They're all liars and thieves. What about your own Seichel? Ha'em is Tein Ederes. Of the Ubatl. Gone. Now, this shmooze, if it would stop here, would be very, very discouraging. And truth be told, we had the babe that stopped the shmuz over here about the horrible predictions, and we're living through them, and so on. Rabbi Yerucham doesn't leave it. We might have to end today with that, but Rabbi Yerucham doesn't leave us in such a place. Chas v'chalil. Elu miyisaydus ha'olam v'im yesh lecha oid yosed yoseh nemen mi'emes u'b'cholzos maksiv. What more can a person rely upon than the truth itself? You're holding on to the truth, and what? And it says ve'emes tehei nederes. Forget it. You can't depend on emes tehei nederes. Emes kola. Emes is gone. Chachma yonish chana boichem ba chachma soifim tisrach. It says chachma soifim, even the wisdom of the scribes, meaning even by those who study Torah. Tisrach, there's going to be things that are not pure. I don't want to translate exactly, but it's tisrach. Ve'echnucha lismach aleh. Ve'echnucha. How could echnucha lismach? Like I've told you many times over the years, when the Satmar Rav was sitting, Rav Hutner was sitting with the Satmar Rav, and they were talking about how, and Rav Hutner was talking to the Satmar Rav about how they came up with this thing in there. It's just, they're trying to make a Sanhedrin, right? They're trying to make a Sanhedrin. At that time, in the late 40s, early 50s, they were trying to create a Sanhedrin. So Rav Hutner asked the Satmar Rebbe, how's it possible? One of the requirements is you have to be Sonei Batza, right? You have to, you could be a big Talmud Chacham, but you have to be Sonei Batza. Sonei Batza means you have to hate money. So Rav Hutner asked the Satmar Rebbe, where are you gonna find anybody nowadays who hates money? So Satmar Rebbe said to him, Fagel, we can alles verkaufen. You hire somebody to hate money. The Satmar Rebbe says, we'll pay somebody off to be like that. We'll bribe one of the Rabbanim to hate money. We'll bribe him. That's what he said. So even the ones that we turn to answer everything in the Chachma. Seichel ayin. Forget Seichel. Nevuah betela. We've got a couple minutes left. Torah chas v'sholem betela. Pure Torah. Betela. Pure Torah. Without any Chazal is saying, without anything. Without any ulterior motive at all. Pure Torah. Betela. Tahara precious. It says the news. Mesa is gone. Emes kola. Mishpat nigzal. We are left utterly alone, with nothing and no one to rely on. Everything that Hashem gave us to rely on, pasha deseregel. How many people? These are extreme situations of people. The pain that people have experienced when they were trusting some rabbi, some rabbi. There was in our 5 towns. There was a rabbi that everybody looked up to, and it turned out to be a knife and a mizana and tons of nivel peh and things like that. And then good Jews that are destroyed by such people, or a boy that looks up to a rebbe, and the rebbe turns out to do something to him, or a girl chalila. Not to say, God forbid, that there are a lot of people like that. It's sad. But pshit saregel, kolo bottle, ben amalis machli shine, raise a be'emes nermarid. So you can't blame them. People have become very disillusioned because what they relied on, what they were trusting, turned also to be not real. V'zeu shemasiyem Mishnah v'alma yesh lanu yishayim. But we're just going to learn the good news from Rabbi Yerucham. The bottom of the page, Rabbi Yerucham says. So again, if you stop here, it's very, very depressing. But the Mishnah that didn't stop over there. The Mishnah says, "Al miliesh lanu yishayim, el avinu shebashamayim." That's the good news. And in that respect, our generation is closer to Hashem than any other generation ever. Because all the crutches are gone. If you're honest, there's nothing to rely on, no one to rely on. Ella, Avinu Shebashamayim. Al Avinu Shebashamayim. Achrei kol ze gilun Chazal soid gadol v'neira. This big secret. Chazal Megala. Bal Yisyayish Adam. So Rabbi Yucham, look at this. We have our Litzvak says Rabbi Nachman's words. Al Yisyayish Adam. Okay, Ein Shum Yesh. There is no Yesh. Bal Yisyayish Adam. Hein emes ki choslan kol elu dvarim haram hanisoim. It's true that all these great, amazing things are gone. These things that we relied on, that Hashem gave us to trust and rely. Malas hel yoinas, all these milas. Mishon and mishayin el shaladam, aval achas hi nishalanu. But the one thing that we're left with, if everything is taken away from us, but now we're not going to delude ourselves that there's anything else that we can rely on. That's what we have, our advantage. And there's one thing that can never ever disappear, can never be destroyed, can never be taken away from you. Are we missing anything? We have everything. Nothing is missing. We're doing much better than ever before in that respect. Because in earlier times you thought, you had a havamina, you went looking, you went asking, you went talking, and you can. Hashem said, Elav Tishim, listen to this, but listen. At the end of time, the Baruch is bringing us to Mashiach. He's bringing us to that place of unbelievable honesty, awareness, Dveikus B'Hashem. There's no alternative other than Dveikus B'Hashem. Emunah. Emunah 001. That's where it's going to be before Mashiach comes. Not believing in this one, believing in that one. Emunah 001. And those who are coming closer and closer to that place, they look at all of these things that are going on with these ridiculous schooler hunters that are going everywhere looking for schoolers and all the things and put into this box. And if you put in this box, you're going to make a shidduch for your kid. All these ridiculous, silly things that they're trying to use as something that you be to rely upon. And not only that, you see sometimes it says the Lashon, guaranteed. Guaranteed. I like to talk to the people that were guaranteed. One thing is guaranteed. You know the one thing is guaranteed? That this guy's going to be depositing something in the bank. That's the only thing that's guaranteed. The one that's behind the whole thing. There's that happened years ago. Somebody came here, wanted also a picture. You want to get different rabbanim, a picture with a pushka. I said, get out of here. I didn't say it like that. I said, I don't do that. Pictures with pushka. Guaranteed. There's nothing. Nobody. There's no guarantees. Rabbi Yucham is not saying, and he talks about the Chavetz Chaim. You have to wait to see when we get to the Chavetz. You don't have to wait. You can look at yourself. But he talks about the Chavetz Chaim on the next page. How Rabbi Yucham describes how we felt when the Chavetz Chaim died. We're done. And how Rabbi Yucham was mechazik himself after the Chavetz Chaim left the world. Because when the Chavetz Chaim left, well, who are we going to ask? What are we going to do? And then Rabbi Yucham came back from that. Not that we miss him. And it's terrible that the tzaddik left us. But Hashem is bringing us to a place, and it's everything that we're learning about, everything that we're talking about, and that's all that's happening right now in Pnimius. Is Hashem is bringing us to a place where Ein Lo Na'amil L'Shayin El Avish Rishon. So everybody thought, and I mentioned it yesterday, everybody thought when the new president was elected, so that they got the old man out, the Nebuch, the senile one, they got him out, and with all of his little helpers and all those, and now he put in, this is our man in Washington, and now you know what? Yerushalayim is ours, the Har Bayis, B'Yadenu, everything is going to be gevaldik, life is going to be good. And then the last 2 weeks, he's starting to talk like this, no? Iran, maybe need to talk to them. Hashem is showing us in everything, every single way that Hashem is speaking to us to make it clear. Ein lachem al mi l'shayin klum. Nobody. The closest you can get to somebody is your mother and your father. Because they're the ahava of everything as well. The love is very, very, very powerful. They might make bad decisions, but they're pure decisions. They can make bad decisions, but they're pure. So just as far as purity is concerned, you get a better reading. You get a good reading. Or if you have a Chavetz Chaim, you have some big tzaddik you can go to, you get a pure reading. But Li'ishayin? My mother, she should be well. This 120. But if it was up to her, I would have gone to Columbia. Look what happened to Columbia. She wanted me to go to Columbia, which I did go for graduate school, but I didn't go to law school. But she wanted me to go there. That was my whole future. She looked in her crystal ball. My mother, she should be well. And she said, Moshe's, in order for him to make a living, he has to go. And she was very, very disappointed when I didn't go. I had no question that came from the deepest love that my mother had for me. And also was colored by her experiences in life, that I should have security and everything should be good and I should make a nice living and so on and so forth. That's no question. As far as the pureness of it. But Li'ishayin? Ain't let me Li'ishayin. He says, just another minute. Just another, because they're so sweet, a little bit. V'zeu b'yir hadvar. V'amo yesh lon Li'ishayin al avinu sheb'shamayim hein emes. Ki Yosef HaTzadik haya lu haya lanu kol ha'balei samcha nimnim. It's true. Life would be a lot easier if we had the Nevi'im, and we had the Balei Samcha, and the Urmitumim, and we had and Seichel, and truth, and justice, and the American way. It would be great. Lu hayinuchan lismach al nevuah al Seichel emes chach b'shayadam yuchal adim l'skarv l'Hashem b'yosef nakel aval ata achazeh shekol elu hadvarim ne'evdu v'ubatlo. Now that all this is gone, ein lo la'adam ma'ledoig. So you might think, oh, Yayush, now I'm going to be nervous, I'm going to be anxious, because all this was taken away. Everything's gone. Achasin shenishal. Not everything was taken away. The one thing that's under all of it and on top of all of it. Achas hi shenishal anu va'aleha yesh lanu li'yishayin. Aleha yesh lanu li'yishayin. Alavina shabashamayim. Hainu emuna, tefillah, dvekas, alamuna. That's never going away. Emuna hu davar shekayim la'olam lo chalba v'lo yochalba shum hismatus upgan. This was printed up in such a way that there could never be any hismatus upgan. Emuna. V'teskayim b'taharasa la'olam. And emuna will stay pure till the end. Kol ha-mishnah mevayeres lanu ech shekol hadvar ma'maylis al yadis harobos v'nisos yisodis ha'olam parchasim v'hochim. So the Chacham in the Mishnah were telling us how all the things, the big yisodis, all the foundations of creation are going to be getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Ad shekol megamri till the end of time, which is now, they're going to disappear, which we see. Rak ma lo yivato ma yishar lanu. This is how you read this. Rabbi Yochanan, this is how you read the Mishnah and the Gemara. It's not depressing. It's not discouraging. They're saying what? He says, what's going to be with us forever? What will never become less and will never disappear? Only one thing. Emunah. So it doesn't mean that you know the future. But that's not everything. Yes, but to live a life. This is what I was talking about yesterday in the afternoon about Rosh Hashanah. That's what's left. That's why Hashem made the world in such a way that he put the whole world on the Haris Yechananah, right? He put the whole world on water, which is you can't be samach on water. How do you have dry land sitting on water? And every day we say Rosh Hashanah. The world should be sinking. The Torah says that Hashem made it in such a way that at the end, there's no one to rely on. Only Him. And that's not depressing. That's the most liberating thing in the world. The reason that people are so anxious and nervous all the time is because they think that their parnasa depends upon the guy in the office, or depends upon the stock market, or depends upon this or that, and that's where they get their money from. That's why they're all anxious and nervous. That's why they're taking 1 million pills. Everybody's supporting these companies. Why? Because they're soimchim on others. And because you're soymach on everybody else, and you know that everybody else is other Bernie Madoffs, and maybe it takes a little bit longer till they find him that he's a Bernie Madoff. So because of that, people are making themselves sick because they're soymach on everything. What am I going to do? My kid didn't get to this camp. That's it. My kid is done. She's never going to get a shidduch because she didn't get into the camp with her friends. She's not going to get a shidduch. She doesn't have a future. Her life is, we're destroyed. Gewalt, gewalt, gewalt. If I had millions of dollars, I'd be able to pay off the camp and they would take her. Rabbi, could you raise a few $1 million? You think I'm making this stuff up? Because my daughter's not going to be able to make it through life unless she gets into the camp that we want and that she wants to, poor baby. Or else she's not going to make it through life. So why is everybody so anxious? Why is everybody going crazy? Because they're soimchim on all the other mishanim, all the other things that they're relying upon, that they're depending upon. They're soimch on all. They're leaning on all these different things. And then there's the new work. I thought if I call up the rabbi, he'll do it. I thought if I call up this one, I have a friend, he's a rich guy, he'll do it for me. I have a friend that's on the board of that school. A little bit, protects you. Get in, right? Can't do it. The schools, there's a waiting list. There's too many people. Yeah, but waiting list. I'm a b'dishavayim, So who do I have to talk to? Every Jew knows that's what you say. You don't say, okay, I'm sorry, I accept it. I'll try to find something else for my daughter to do this. Some Jews don't talk like that. What did you say? You know anybody else I could talk to? Who else can I talk to? Notice, who else can I be soymach on? And if the person tells you, Avicha Sheveshamai, and then what will you say to him? Or the secretary? Come on, do me a favor. Give me a favor. Oh, you're Shkaya. No, really. Who could I talk to? So the secretary is this very firm lady, and she says, I'm telling you, talk to Avicha Sheveshamai. What would you do? What would you think of this lady? No, I really want. I'm telling you, I really want to get my kid into camp. She's saying, I know, but I can't. We can't. It's overbooked. There's no room. All the rich kids are already here. All the miyichistic kids are already here. I can't get you in. I can't get you in. It's done. Finished. You mean even if I be Moshe Feinstein's grand, can't get you in. It's done. So then what? So what's my eitzah? The eitzah is, they look at you like you're not from. They look at the secretary like she's not from this world. And that's how you look at the end of the Mishnah. That's when you look at the end of the Gemara, looking as being what? Depressing. And it ends up by saying, this is gone, 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 there's nothing. So you say the same thing to the Gemara. You say, Shkaya. What you're telling me is that I'm done. I have to go to the psychiatrist to get some pills. I gotta get help. Or take me to I'll take an airplane, take me to some Baba in Eretz Yisrael or something, who's going to make some promise. He'll sprinkle water on me. He'll make a promise and he'll tell me, "Don't worry. Soon you're going to meet someone that's going to let your kid in the camp." Emuna, dvekus. A life of Emuna and dvekus is a life without anxiety. Doesn't mean it goes your way, but it means you say it. So it's not working out. That doesn't mean you can't try to a little protexia. We have a Messiah like that. And you could try. You could make a call like this, make a call like that. I mean, a little bit, there was one of my daughters called up about camp a little bit too late for one of my granddaughters. It was ready, and we told us it was already closed. And I had to call the family of my son-in-law. He has big rabbis in his family. She's in. Baruch Hashem. Yesh Lamini Shai. I called Mishpacha, and he's a rabbi, and doesn't mean you can't try. But how do you react if it doesn't work? Because it's stadlus, you make it stadlus. But to be mevar, that's not going to be another kid's cheshbon. That's something else. I'm not getting into that in halacha. But you make it stadlus. But if it doesn't work out, what do you teach your kid? What message do you give to your kid? What do you yourself feel? If it doesn't matter? That's what we're talking about. Emunah B'tachon, Shara B'tachon. That's what we're talking about. You don't have to take any pill. You don't have to go to Mexico or to Borough Park to get ayahuasca. You don't have to go anywhere. Totally. Sorry I kept you over. Don't be angry. Tov lecha.